Blood on the Dust Trail, a suspense thriller western. Written by Reuben White, Opaline Inversion. The wound before the story. A bullet doesn't ask permission to mean something. It just does. Ezekiel Cross found that out the hard way at 3:30. In the afternoon, standing in the doorway of a life he'd sworn off, chest open, boot heel planted in the dirt, and a piece of cold iron lodged right where his past used to sleep. The message wasn't written in ink. It was written in him. They took Cora. What Rust remembers. Here's the thing about a man who's put down his guns. The guns don't put him down. Ezekiel had been clean of the trade for 11 years. 11 years of sunrises that didn't taste like gunpowder. 11 years of a daughter who called him daddy like the word hadn't been dragged through the mud of his early sins and wrung out dry on a fence post. 11 years of mornings where the only thing that drew first was coffee. He'd built something honest from the wreckage, planted corn, in soil too stubborn to yield, taught these hands, these old, scarred, dishonorable hands, how to be gentle, how to braid a little girl's hair at dawn, and not tremble. But old iron remembers what soft palms forget. The Carver Gang had ridden in like weather, slow on the horizon, then all at once in the yard. They didn't want money. They wanted to send a word. And the word had been delivered into Ezekiel's chest with a .44 at close range, close enough that the shooter had to look him dead in the eye to do it. That was intentional. That was the message inside the message. We know who you were, Haas. And we ain't scared of who you became. The sermon of broken men. Doc Haynes pulled the bullet out with 2 fingers and a prayer that didn't sound like he believed a word of it. You die on my table, Doc said, and I'll be put out considerable. I ain't dying on your table, Ezekiel said. No, you're dying on your feet. That's worse. A man told twice is a man not told at all. Some lessons don't land until they land in the chest. He laced his coat over the bandage. The wound pulled. He let it pull. Pain was just the body reciting its scripture, testimony that the flesh was still preaching. Outside, his horse Elegy stood at the post like she hadn't heard the shot. Horses always know when it's time. They just wait for the rider to reckon with it. Etheric drift, the trail speaks. The dust of the Perdition Road don't lie about where you've been. 3 sets of tracks. 2 riding hard, 1 dragged small. Boot heel side scuffed. That was Cora. She'd fought them. Lord have mercy. She'd fought them. She had his blood after all. And blood, even the baptized kind, carries its native language deep in the vein. Ezekiel rode slow. Not from weakness. From arithmetic. A man who rides fast toward war is a man who ain't thought about coming home. Speed is for those without a daughter waiting on the other end of the equation. He followed the tracks east toward Harrow's Creek, Carver. Territory, known to every lawman from here to the Kansas line, avoided by all of them. The kind of place where righteousness arrived late and left embarrassed, brushing red dirt off its boots. The sun fell behind him like it was ashamed of what it was. About to light up. The inversion. Here is where the story scuffs against itself, where the narrative refuses to travel in a straight line and instead stains the page sideways, the way language does when it means more than it says. The retired outlaw does not ride into Harrow's Creek with vengeance between his teeth. He rides in with grief. That's the trick nobody tells you about fatherhood. It makes a man dangerous in ways the law can't codify, can't measure, can't predict with any statute on the books. Vengeance is a hot thing, bright, quick, burns itself out, like a match dropped in a dry summer. Men fueled by vengeance die beautiful and useless. Grief is cold. Grief is patient. Grief is a river that don't care about the season. Ezekiel had been carrying his cold river since the day he understood what his old life had already cost Cora before she'd had the words to say so. He wasn't riding toward the Carver Gang. He was riding toward the version of himself they'd made the catastrophic mistake of waking up. Harrow's Creek, last light. He put Elegy at the tree line and waited for the firelight to give him his count. 4, maybe 5. Hard men with soft consciences, the most dangerous kind because they'd already talked themselves into it. You play the hand you're dealt like it's the hand you chose. That's scrambled wisdom. Words broken and rebuilt until they mean the shape of the moment, not the shape of comfort. He checked the cylinder. 6 rounds. One bullet already. Spent by them into him. The ledger was uneven. He stepped from the tree line the way a man steps into cold water, measured at first until the full depth of it hits, and then with total commitment, the kind that don't leave room for second-guessing or retreat. The fire cracked. The first man saw him and reached for iron. He was slower. The second man was smarter, which only meant he had a longer moment to regret his choices before the moment ended for him entirely. By the time the settling dust had finished its sermon, Ezekiel was inside the old barn, the kind of structure that smelled like old decisions fermenting in the heat, and Cora was there, bound and defiant, eyes blazing with a fury that looked like looking in a mirror 20 years gone. "Daddy," she said, voice like a struck match. "Easy, baby girl." He cut the rope. "I gotcha." She looked at the blood soaking through his coat. "You're hit." "I was hit," he said. "There's a difference." The coda, wisdom reassembled. A broken thing that heals becomes harder at the seam than it ever was whole. That is the Opaline Inversion. That is kintsugi. That is the ancient teaching dressed in a future the present has not yet earned. That is a father walking out of Harrow's creek in the last remaining honest light, a bullet removed, a daughter restored, a ghost rehaunting the body that tried to lay it down for good. The trail was quiet now. Elegy waited at the tree line, patient as a prayer someone forgot they started. Ezekiel set Cora up in the saddle first, then pulled himself up behind her, wincing, deliberate, present. The dust had no more to say. The language of iron had gone. Still, the Perdition Road stretched out ahead of them, empty and honest in the fading copper light. But the seams were gold. Kintsugi Soul. Scrambled Wisdom Series, Etheric Friction. Copyright Reuben White, all rights reserved. Hashtag Western, hashtag Suspense Thriller, hashtag Kintsugi Soul, hashtag Scrambled Wisdom, hashtag Reuben White.